Good morning, everyone. Only at Interfaith, we got people dancing in the background, jamming to the music here. Gorgeous meditation on freedom. I loved it. And Rob, yours wasn't bad either. Rob and I give each other a hard time all the time. But Tao of Willie, hey, how can you go wrong, right? Well, I really appreciated the meditation on freedom. Of course, we're 4th of July weekend, and the title of the talk today is "The Time to Awaken is Now." And you might say, well, one of two things about me doing a talk on awakening is it's a really bold thing to do or a really stupid thing to do. I'm probably leaning towards the later, I don't know. But I feel that I do have something to share around that. I've had a couple of experiences, like I'm sure many of you have had, where we've stepped into that, just that pure beingness of who we are. And when we have that experience, we have something that is a benchmark for us to go back to. I was talking to a friend of mine just this last Friday, I think it was, and he shared very honestly with me. He was saying, I've got to be honest with you, Brett, for a lot of times I really just thought you were arrogant and self-righteous, and he had a fairly long list of things. And I said, well, you're not so wrong on that. I've definitely had my moments with those things. But he said, I had this experience where I began to recognize that I'm not my thoughts. And he said, and I thought of you, and he said, man, Brett's been telling me this stuff the whole time, but I just couldn't recognize it. And so, to me, I hear freedom, with Janet speaking of that, and I just love it because really, Krishnamurti, if you're familiar with his teachings, he said, people speak of freedom, but we're really never free until we have transcended all of our fears. That we've transcended all of our fears. Well, then, the mind would say, well, come on, I don't know that we ever get past all of our fears. But the truth is, there's something within us and as us that's here, has always been here, will always be here, that is able to be a compassionate witness to all of our fears and all of our ego. And I say ego not just from an arrogant point of view, but from a self-image point of view, because anytime we stray away from the truth of who we are, which is naturally joy, peaceful, and loving, naturally aligned with God, anytime we stray away from that, that is called the ego. It's the ego because we have separated ourselves from God, or whatever your source is. And so in that separation, all of us are really sometimes desperately trying to get back to that place. And I know that's been true for me. There's, a lot of my life, I just wasn't happy. I'm like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here thinking that if I left this body and I went back to spirit, everything will be okay. But we're, of course, here to do the work, to return to who we are before we leave these bodies. Hopefully that will work out. And we're challenged with all these things of, I've said it many times, but I feel it's worth repeating, and that is we get caught up in what God is bringing us, what life is bringing us, because we say, no, God, you're messing up. You don't have it right. There's something that needs to happen differently than this. I don't like it. And so I heard somewhere in here when we were talking about Janet in the meditation speaking of, what do you need to be free? And I love that, and I'm not completely sure what the context was. I'm just going to share from my perspective of what we need to be free. What we need to be free is we need to let go of our need to be free, because it's a trap. It's a trap. because it gets you believing that until this thing happens, I can't live as the truth of who I am. And so the game is to continue to practice surrender. In fact, my teacher, Sadashiva, when somebody said to him, said, tell me about surrender. And he said, what else is there? What else is there? We're surrendering all the time, all these things that are coming to us that we're feeling challenged with, and we're like, no, I need to be free from that. That's the very thing that is here to awaken you. My thing for a long time has been sugar, and I love sugar. And, if I'm caught in my person, caught in my ego, then I say I'm a sugar addict. That I need to step beyond this in order to be happy, in order to experience joy. That is not true. And when I'm rooted in the truth of who I am, which I feel is true right now, I'm not thinking about a sugar addiction. I'm not thinking about anything else I need, because the truth is I have everything I need right now. And that's not just me. That's not just me. And you hear all the teachers say it. Jesus said, you can do all the things I've done and even greater things. Wow. I can do greater things than walking on water, right? Raising people from the dead and healing the blind. Yes. I know that's true in my heart. It's not even a belief anymore. I know that's true. And the more I let go of my belief that I need something else or my limitations, I experience this. One of the times when I stepped into this place of just coming home to who I was, it was in that moment I go, ooh, I really had no idea of who I was. It was only an idea of who I thought I was. And so if you think you know who you are, you're not looking in the right place, because it'll never be about thinking about who you are. You have to go past the mind. You have to go past the limitations. And something else my teacher Sadashiva had said is, he said, when you step beyond your limitations, in other words, you step beyond the mind, you step beyond the fears, you return to a place of freedom, there's nothing you can't accomplish. If you want to touch the far side of the moon, you can touch the far side of the moon. If you want to see the end of the galaxy, you can see the end of the galaxy. And for me, that's not a metaphor. That is the literal truth. And when I went through that place the first time of just coming home, it struck me. It's like, oh my God, all things are possible. And we hear that in one of the verses in the Bible, with God, all things are possible. But all the teachers say it, they didn't limit themselves. Yogananda talked about, how his teacher has raised people from the dead. There's actually many documentations of people who have lifted people up, and including from a Christian point of view in the Bible, the Apostle Paul did the same thing. So it wasn't even Jesus. I think we limit ourselves sometimes to what's possible, and it's just because we have bought into that belief. We've somehow identified that belief is the truth. Ultimately, it's about disidentifying with everything. With everything. And if you come home to that place and you go, I got it, I'm home, you have to let that go too. You have to let it all go until you return to a place of silence and stillness. I hear so many people talk about the truth, and my brother has been such a huge teacher for me, and not always the way that I wanted it. We were on opposite sides of the fence politically. He represents so many things that I am not, but we're fortunate and blessed to love each other. And it's been that love for each other that we've stayed with this process of wanting to learn more. We imbued our family holidays with yelling sometimes, we went at it. And I look back at that and I'm just like, And, but I'm so grateful because we love each other, we would come back, maybe not the next day, but not too far down the road, we would come back and I'd say, he's a big hunter, and he's taught me I don't have anything against hunting. In fact, him going out into nature, that's his godly experience. He needs that experience to connect with nature and to connect with himself. But I had judgment at the time because I didn't want animals to be killed. And we won't get into all that. Some people feel differently. Wherever you're at is perfect. But he was talking to me about how, you don't know how difficult it is to kill an animal. I go, I don't care. You killed an animal, And then he said, we do good too, He said, I give my food to hungry hunters for the hungry. And at the time, I couldn't hear the words because I was too busy being right about everything, And so the next day, I was thinking as I was practicing just letting go and practicing forgiveness, even though there was nothing to forgive. He was just doing his thing. I was doing my thing. Ultimately, there's nothing to forgive because everyone is expressing themselves in whatever way that God is expressing through them. And it's all good, whether you recognize God is expressing through you or not. And so I thought, wow, I didn't know that. How beautiful that he's helping people that don't have food and he's giving, the animals to them. And, and I think I learned too, as long as I'm eating meat, I don't have anything to gripe about because somebody has to do it, I don't eat much meat actually though. So, these people are our teachers. And we think of things that are our vices, our addictions, our habits. It's like we're waiting for those things to change in order to awaken. And I will say this, we are here to awaken to the truth of who we are. And let's just talk about awakening for a sec. What is awakening? Awakening is when you come to the recognition that you are not your thoughts and you are not your body. You are nothing physical, you are nothing mental, you are nothing emotional. You are simply the awareness of all of those things. And when you have that recognition, the recognition of who you are, everything gets easier because all of a sudden you have this experience and somebody pushes your buttons and then you catch yourself and you go, I've falsely identified with something as the truth. Any opinions, any self-righteousness or beliefs, let it go. Just let it go. And so talking about, I mentioned politics, people say, well, this is what the truth is. I'm not in on that program. This is what the truth is. When you come back where you have empathy and compassion for all parties, and you come back to the stillness and the silence, then you see, and then I'll have a conversation with you of what the truth is. Because the truth is beyond our opinions and our beliefs. There's a stillness and a silence that is there for each and every one of us. It's there right now. But sometimes our mind is so busy that we can't hear the silence. We can't feel the stillness. But there's words in there. There's wisdom in there. But our mind is so busy and we're not catching it. We're not catching what's being said behind it. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. You can't ever get to know God or whatever your source is unless you come back to a place of stillness. But it doesn't mean that you can't awaken and live that very truth of who you are right now in this moment. Right now. So the invitation here is give up all these things that you're waiting for. If you could right now, and it's possible, if you could right now just say, you know what, God, I'm sorry that I've been fighting life. I'm sorry that I've been resisting life. Help me to fully accept life exactly as it is right now in this moment. I'm not asking you to change one single thing. Well, maybe that one thing, right? Maybe that's what the mind says. Maybe that one thing. You know, we've been playing this game for a long time, and it's okay. This is part of the game of life, but we've been playing for this game like when I get more money or the right relationship or when I heal my addiction or this or that and this and that. You know what? Here's what you do. When you have a desire, as I might sometimes for a piece of chocolate cake, when you have a desire for something, notice that your mind feels guilty. Is like, oh, you shouldn't be thinking that way, or you shouldn't feel this way. No, just notice that. Allow it to say whatever it wants. I had a friend that went down, she has MS, she's been in a scooter, a wheelchair for quite a few years now, I think 9 years now. She went down south at Nashville to see Dr. Joe Dispenza. Any Dr. Joe Dispenza fans here? He bridges, does a nice job of bridging spirituality with science. He's had miraculous healings with many, many people, including people with MS and on and on and on. So she went down there hoping she would come back walking, and I love that she has that hope and that optimism. But one of the things that happened for her, she connected with this woman who went through an awakening down there, and she's watching her on Facebook and listening to all the things she said. And she said, Brady, I wanted to tell you, don't use that word Brady, only she can. Scott, I know that's the first thing you're going to say to me. So she said, I just had to tell you, you know, and she was telling me about all these things. She was so excited. And so we had this beautiful conversation, this conscious, aware conversation. And she said, yeah, she said, I get it. It's just about giving up all my judgments. It's not judging anymore, and it's accepting. And I go, can I just offer a tweak to that? Don't give up your judgments. Don't give up your judgments. You're like, what? Don't give up your judgments. No, don't give up your judgments, because you cannot stop the mind from judging. You can't stop the mind from judging. But what you can do is you can be aware of the mind judging. Do you see the difference? Just allow the mind to judge. Allow the mind to be angry. Allow the mind to hate. But be aware of it. Don't be pulled into it. That's pulling us back into our ego, back into our person. And then you're going to be experiencing the drama and the stress and the suffering of life, and you don't need to. I think I want to finish with, I love you guys so much. I love this place. I love that I can feel safe to just be me here, to allow God hopefully to shine through. This is an extraordinary place to me. I travel, you guys, most of you know, I travel about an hour to get here when I'm not speaking, and I come here. We have a gift that we're given, and this gift is to be in a community where we can support each other on awakening to who we are. And our vision is, I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm not going to get it exactly correct, but it's something about celebrating a world awakened to love. Celebrating a world awakened to love. So I'm inviting you, who cares what you think, what your mind thinks or has a negative to say about this, or you need to change that. You be the witness to all of that. Just be a witness to it, the compassionate witness. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this. There's two witnesses. There's the one that is aware of something happening, but still wants it to be different than what it is. But take another step back within yourself and then be a witness to that witness. You see what I'm saying? Be aware of the awareness, because the first awareness is still in the judgment. It's still coming from the person, even though it's good to be aware. And then there's another awareness that is able to simply witness that awareness without any judgment, without needing the world or anyone else to be different than they are. And that's the place where miracles happen. And that is who you are right now in this very moment. Namaste.